There is one story in the Old Testament, story about unthinkable violence and tragedy. It could be considered the most sad and disturbing story in the entire Bible. Also, this story may be inappropriate for some people, as the deeds described in the story could easily trigger some kind of trauma from your past. The story I am bringing to you is found in chapters 19 to 21 of the book of Judges. Some people may be familiar with chapter 19, but most of these people do not read the rest of the story. I think there are several important lessons that we could learn from such a disturbing story. Join me and let's delve into the story. Book of Judges, chapter 19, verse 1. In those days Israel had no king. A Levite man who lived in a remote area in the hill country of Ephraim took a woman from Bethlehem in Judah as his concubine. So there is a Levite man who lives in the northern part of Israel, and he acquires this woman to be his concubine or wife, however you want to call it, and she is living with him in South Bethlehem. But she was unfaithful and left his husband for her father's home in Bethlehem, where she stayed for 4 months. So she betrayed his husband and fled back to her father's house. Now this Levite man wants his wife back, so he travels from the north of the hill country of Ephraim to the south in Bethlehem to seek this woman and be with her again. So he gets there, and she takes him to her father's house. When the woman's father saw him, he gladly welcomed him. He was very hospitable, and for several times when a Levite man tried to leave and return home with his wife, he persuaded this Levite man to stay another night. So he remained there for 3 days, eating and drinking and sleeping there. Finally, after 3 days, he leaves to go home, and that is where all the tragedy starts to unfold. The man left and went toward Jebus, that is Jerusalem, with his servant, 2 saddled donkeys, and his concubine. When they neared Jebus and the day was almost gone, the servant said to his master, "Come, let's stop at this city of the Jebusites and spend the night there." His master replied, "No, we won't go into any city whose people are not Israelites. We will go on to Gibeah. Come, let's try to reach Gibeah or Ramah and spend the night in one of those places." So they went on, and the sun set as they neared Gibeah in Benjamin. There they stopped to spend the night. They went and sat in the city square, but no one took them in for the night. That evening an old man from the hill country of Ephraim, who was living in Gibeah, the inhabitants of the place were Benjamites, came in from his work in the fields. When he looked and saw the traveler in the city square, the old man asked, "Where are you going? Where did you come from?" He answered, "We are on our way from Bethlehem in Judah to a remote area in the hill country of Ephraim where I live. I have been to Bethlehem in Judah, and now I am going to the house of the Lord. No one has taken me in for the night. We have both straw and fodder for our donkeys and bread and wine for ourselves. We don't need anything from you. Only if you could give us a pillow to rest our heads on, that's all I need." "You are welcome at my house," the old man said. "Let me supply whatever you need, only don't spend the night in the square." So he took him into his house and fed his donkeys. After they had washed their feet, they had something to eat and drink. Soon after this happened. While they were enjoying themselves, some of the wicked men of the city surrounded the house. Pounding on the door, they shouted to the old man who owned the house, "Bring out the man who came to your house, so we can have sex with him." So there are perverted men living in Gibeah who surrounded the old man's house and said, "We know that a guest came to your house. Bring him out so all of us can sex with him." The owner of the house went outside and said to them, "No, my friends, don't be so vile. Since this man is my guest, don't do this outrageous thing. Look, here is my virgin daughter and his concubine. I will bring them out to you now, and you can use them and do to them whatever you wish. But as for this man, don't do such an outrageous thing." So he offered to these wicked men his own daughter, who never slept with a man, and his guest's concubine instead of a Levite. But the men would not listen to him. So the man took his concubine and sent her outside to them, and they raped her and abused her throughout the whole night, and only at dawn they let her go. Can you imagine what she went through? How abused, beaten, and worn out she was when all these men raped throughout the night. Or how heartbroken and powerless she was when they finally let her go. She barely had the strength to crawl back to the man's house and just collapsed on the porch and lay there. Finally the next day, when a Levite got up in the morning and opened the door of the house and stepped out to continue on his way, there lay his concubine, fallen in the doorway of the house with her hands on the threshold. "Get up," he said to her. "Let's go." But there was no response. The woman had been so abused that she had died. After this, scripture says, "Then the man put her on his donkey and set out for home." After this, it gets even worse. When he reached home, he took a knife and cut up his concubine limb by limb into 12 parts and sent them into all the areas of Israel. Everyone who saw it was saying to one another, "Such a thing has never been seen or done, not since the day the Israelites came out of Egypt. We must do something, so speak up." Just imagine. This man took his deceased concubine to his house and gruesomely divided her body into 12 pieces. He then sent each piece along with a letter detailing the horrific events to the 12 tribes of Israel. This letter accused the tribe of Benjamin, one of their own, of committing this atrocity. When the other tribes received these messages, they were horrified and said, "Nothing like this has happened throughout our history." The story doesn't conclude in chapter 19. I wish it did. Unfortunately, it worsens as we move into chapter 20, where a civil war erupts among the 12 tribes of Israel. They unite against the tribe of Benjamin, which had committed a heinous sin against one of their fellow Israelites. I urge you to delve into chapters 20 and 21 for the full details. But to summarize, a massive battle ensues, resulting in the loss of thousands upon thousands of lives on both sides. Ultimately, only 600 Benjamite men survive. By chapter 21, the remaining 11 tribes begin to feel remorse and pity for the tribe of Benjamin, fearing the tribe's extinction since there are no Benjamite women left for them to marry and continue their lineage. Now the Israelites faced a new problem, the potential extinction of one of their 12 tribes. To address this issue, the Israelites killed men from the clan of Jabesh Gilead and took 400 women who had never been with a man, giving them to 400 of the 600 surviving Benjamite men so they could reproduce. But there was a problem. 200 Benjamite men were still without wives. This illustrates how one bad decision leads to another. The Israelites then devised a plan to circumvent their vow of not giving their daughters to the Benjamites. They decided that if the Benjamites kidnapped their daughters during an upcoming festival, it wouldn't technically violate their vow. So they sent a message to Benjamites saying, "There's a festival coming up soon. Since we cannot give our daughters to you because we made a vow not to, but if you kidnap them during this festival, then it's on you, not on us. Because technically we didn't give our daughters to you. You kidnapped them." So these Benjamite men go and kidnap 200 women during the festival while they are dancing and having fun, and they took them as wives. I know this story sounds crazy, and I tried to summarize it as quickly as possible. But here's the main point. One bad decision often leads to another, and these decisions can have far-reaching effects on others. Reread the story and notice how many people were negatively impacted by a single bad decision. While some of the Benjamite men may have deserved their fate, most of the people in Benjamin were innocent and died in battle. The people of Jabesh Gilead also perished, and their women were taken and given to the Benjamites. Additionally, other women were kidnapped from their families by the Benjamite men. All of this chaos resulted from a series of poor decisions. There's much more to this story in chapters 20 and 21, which I encourage you to read. But let's begin by examining some crucial lessons we can draw from these events. The first lesson is this: without accountability, we are prone to deviate significantly from the right path. As stated in Judges, in those days, Israel had no king. This lack of leadership and oversight allowed individuals to act without fear of consequences, leading to extreme moral and social decay. When there is no one to hold us accountable, we are more likely to make poor decisions, believing we can act in isolation without having to answer to anyone. This story serves as a stark reminder of the dangers of living without accountability and the importance of having checks and balances in our lives to prevent us from straying too far from what is right. This is precisely what was happening in Israel. There was no king, and while there was a law, it was neither respected nor enforced. As a result, people ended up committing acts they likely never imagined. The second key lesson here is the importance of treating every human being as a bearer of the image of God. We see a man stating that it would be wrong to mistreat another man, yet he allows mistreatment of his daughter and the concubine. His mindset devalues the lives of his daughter and the concubine compared to the man. It's crucial to avoid such behavior. The third and final lesson I want to share with you today is that God offers grace even when we make destructive decisions. Look at how the book of Judges concludes. It notes that the Benjamites took the women they needed from the dancers they captured and returned to their land. They rebuilt their cities and settled there. At that time, each Israelite went back to their own tribe, family, and inheritance. The final verse of the book of Judges sums up the entire book. In those days there was no king in Israel, Everyone did what was right in their own eyes. Although God was merciful and allowed the tribe of Benjamin to survive and rebuild, their actions still had consequences. If there's one thing I hope you take away from this video, it's that every decision we make has consequences, often significant ones that we can't foresee or control. Now, if this video blessed you in any way, comment down what you think about this story. Also, like, subscribe, and share this video to help us spread God's message. God bless you.